I want to tell you about Ephraim. The story tonight is connected to our previous episode in that there's a car involved in this story. I don't know very much about Ephraim, except that somehow he is the owner of a rare car. Whoops. Just trying to, okay. And the car is valuable. Very few models like it in Israel. And he's been enjoying it for a few years, but all of a sudden, he's had a few problems develop in his car, one after the other. He brought the car into a mechanic. The mechanic did a thorough inspection of the vehicle, and he called him with not such great news. It's not that the problems in and of themselves couldn't be solved, but he actually needed to replace 3 different parts under the hood. And the mechanic told him that not only does he not have the parts, and he has a pretty good supply of various parts in his warehouse, but he actually searched and contacted other suppliers, and he could not find anybody who had these parts. So there's nothing he can do. So Ephraim is pretty disappointed. And he himself, he didn't believe that the mechanic tried hard enough. So he went on the internet, he made his phone calls. He was contacting auto parts suppliers far and wide. And lo and behold, his results were no better than the mechanics. He was able to drive the car home, parked in his driveway, was advised, not to use it. And he was pretty saddened, by it. Several weeks go by, and one of his neighbors, who knows of his predicament, says, I was visiting several blocks away with some mishpacha, and there's a car just like yours parked on the street. But it's been there for a long time. That car has not moved. You might want to look into it. So Ephraim was pretty excited, got the address from this neighbor, went over to the car. The car had a thick layer of dust on the car, evidence that it had not been moved in weeks, as it turns out, actually even months. And there was an official sticker from the local government warning that the car needed to be moved within 14 days of the date posted at the bottom of this announcement. And if the car is not removed by 12 p.m. on that particular date, it will be towed, and it will be towed to a metal scrapper. The car will be destroyed, and the bill will be sent to the registered owner of the car. So that notice was posted just a few days earlier. So he had about 10 days. He made a note of the date, and at about 11:30 on that day, he shows up. The car is still there. All the dust is still on the car. The sticker is still on the car. And according to the sticker, in a half an hour, the tow truck's going to come. So he waits a couple of minutes, and then he gets to work. And he works fast, and he takes out those 3 parts that he needs. He takes out from under the hood. He finishes just a couple of minutes before 12, and he's in whatever vehicle he took to get there. And he's hanging around for a couple of minutes, and lo and behold, while he's still there, the tow truck comes and takes the car away. Well, the owner of the car we'll call him Shimon. The owner of the car comes home. He's been overseas for 3 months. And he left his car on the street in a parking spot. What does he know? He gets home, he sees his car is missing. He's having a fit. And his neighbors tell him it was towed. And this is already becoming a topic of discussion in the community. What do you mean towed? What's wrong? The sign doesn't say anything here. What do you mean towed? So his neighbor told him it was deemed to be an abandoned car. There was a note placed on. None of us had keys for the car. We didn't know how to get in touch with you. And they towed the car. He says, but you know what else? But before they towed the car, a fellow came over and he took some parts out of your car. And all the neighbors start talking about this a little bit. And one neighbor says, yeah, I know it. I know where that guy lives. He's familiar to me. He didn't have all the details. He didn't have contact information. But he gave Ephraim enough information that he gave Shimon enough information about Ephraim that Shimon was able to locate Ephraim. And he says to him, I understand you took 3 parts out of my car. I expect you to either give them back to me. He already knows they're rare. Either give them back to me or pay me for them. What do you mean? Neither one is justified. Your car was destined to be towed and dismantled and scrapped, and you weren't there. That's it. It's like Hefker. Ownerless property marked for destruction. That was like free grabs. He says, I don't accept that. You owe me money. So they went to Rav Silverstein and asked him the din, asked him what the law should be. So Rav Silverstein cited a few words, a pasuk, from the story of Noach and the Mabul. Before the Mabul started, Noach was commanded, he already had the ark ready. And he was commanded about the animals. And God tells him, you have to feed the animals. You're going to have to feed them while they're on the teva, on the ark. And it says, that you should take to you from all the food that will be eaten. Different animals had different diets. Noah had to make sure they would all be cared for. So when you look at this phrase, that's the first, the pasuk continues, you should gather it to you, and it'll be for you and for them, for food. You'll have food, and the animals will have food. The beginning of that pasuk is you take for you. Because in the Hebrew word kach, which is a command, means you take. So you don't really have to repeat lecha, for you. It's in a plain meaning. If you want to say you take, you just say kach. That one little word means you take. So why did Hashem tell Moshe kach lecha, you take for you? So the Kli Yakar raises this question, quoted by Rav Silverstein, and says it's parallel to like by Lulav and Esrog. We know that in Israel on the first day and outside of Israel on the first and second day, because the second day is considered like a first day, that the Torah tells us, Ulakachtem lachem bayom harishon, that you should take for you on the first day, and goes on to discuss the mitzvah of Lulav, Esrog, Hadassim, Aravos. And we learn out from the word lachem. Again, you have ulakachtem, and you shall take. Why does it add the word lachem? It already said in that one word, ulakachtem, that you shall take. It says it adds lachem to you. We learn from that a person on the first day in Israel or outside Israel on the first 2 days must own the lulav and esrog, etc. The 4 minim. You can't borrow it. During Chol HaMoed, you can borrow a lulav and esrog from somebody and make the bracha on it. But on the first 2 days, chutz la'aretz, in diaspora, it has to be lachem, it has to be for you. So too says Hashem to Noach. Now Noach You know that the whole world is going to be destroyed except for you and what's in the teva and the fish in the water. None of these people living here who have been unmoved from all of your years of working on the teva, none of them have been moved to do tshuva. They're not making preparations. They didn't ask you to be in the ark. They're going to be destroyed, or the property is being destroyed. But even though it's going to all be destroyed, you cannot take from their property. If they own it, it's theirs. You have to take food, lecha, that you have a right to. So it's either food that you have in your possession, or food that's growing in ownerless lands, or food that you buy, but you have to make it yours. You can't take it from those people, even though they will never live to eat most of the food that they have in their possession. And Rav Silberstein said, same thing here. That car was still owned, at least until the moment it was hooked up to the tow truck, it was still owned by Shimon. When Ephraim took out the parts, it was not his car. No matter what would happen to the car in the future, whether the future was 20 minutes away or 20 days away, he did not have a right to go and diminish somebody else's property, and he either has to return the parts or pay Shimon for those parts. We're very careful about respecting the property rights of others, and as we're taught in Pirkei Avot, Yehi mamon chavecha chaviv alach kishelach, that the property of others has to be as cherished to you as you cherish your own. And of course, property is not the most important thing in the world, but respecting property is. We really learned that the fate of the Dor HaMabul, the generation of the flood, was really sealed because of Hamas, of penny thievery, which did not recognize people's right and actually depleted people's property in a way that they couldn't be compensated for. So we are very careful about that. And the big value that we're careful about is also life. Lo ta'amod adam r'yecha, we don't stand idly by when somebody's in danger. We have to protect our lives. And certainly those are issues, and that last one about protecting lives, our own life and the lives of others, very serious matters today. And we hope we will all be successful.